All right, New England Patriots fans, Joe and Bob here from Local Football Flavor. We're talking about the offseason for the New England Patriots. And in terms of what they need to do, there's a couple of things that they already did. One of them, fire Matt Patricia. That was a good decision.
Mm-hmm.
Hiring who they hired, maybe not,
Maybe?
but we'll see. Now, in terms of on the field product, the Patriots weren't far off this year. There was a lot of good things that we saw in the Patriots. There was a lot of bad things we saw with the Patriots too. But when we think about what do they need to, what do they need to figure out? Well, the number one thing, and we've been saying this about a lot of teams, because a lot of it is uncertain. We're coming out of a curve of a lot of Hall of Fame to very good quarterbacks meeting the end of the road. We're also coming into a curve where there's these younger guys, year 3, year 4, year 2, that are really picking up steam, and then some from that group that are falling down. You're really trying to figure these things out, and you need to figure out, how long do you want to go on with Mac Jones? Is he a bad quarterback? No. Is he a quarterback that you can build off of? Yes. But the Patriots aren't that type of team that want to, take massive amounts of risks when it comes to players. And what Mac Jones really needs is some complementary players to his skill level and to his skills. And right now, the New England Patriots don't have that. They have the vestiges of some decent players. And we also have some young guys that their skill sets don't seem to be in line with what Mac Jones can or wants or is told to do. And here's the other thing, too. In this offseason, when we look at the most important thing, in my mind, it's building Mac Jones up. Mac Jones is a confident fellow. You don't have to build up his confidence any. He's a confident guy. But when you look at the skills, one of the things, like you mentioned in our previous show, Joe, is you've got to speed up the process of getting the ball downfield. You've got to speed up the process of decision making. You've got to help him make these decisions. Now, one of the ways that you can do that is by continuing to improve those complementary players around him, but also improving that offensive line from average to above average, where you're looking at him and you're saying, okay, you've got all the time in the world. Now, knowing that nothing's going to happen to you that is exceptionally bad, we want you to work on this set of skills because we think that you need it. Now, how much of the back, going backwards did Mac Jones do because he's going backwards, or how much did he do because Matt Patricia sucked? And I've got to say that I'm going to put that on Patricia, and I'm going to put 75% of it to 85% of it on Patricia, and the other part of it on to Mac Jones. And here's why. When Bailey Zappi came into those games, now granted, we're taking this with a grain of salt. When he came into those games, the team looked different, and it looked a little bit more capable. But what we saw from Zappi is that he can't push the ball downfield. So when the time came where they're behind or where they're trying to come back, it wasn't working. So they brought Mac back in again. There was a point in time where we didn't think Mac Jones was gonna come back, but he did. And so you ask yourself and you say, hey, why did that even happen? Other than the injury, why did it happen for longer than that? And you mentioned it is maybe they're not confident in Jones, but you've got a young guy, you've got a capable young guy that probably a third of the teams in the NFL would clamor to get, and you're really not doing anything with them. And I want to harken back here to that game against, I believe it was against Buffalo last season, not this past season, but the season before that. That was like in like this the driving snowstorm game.
Yeah, where he threw the ball like 3 times.
He threw the ball 3 times. Granted, good decision. I wouldn't have thrown it more than 3 times in that game either.
Allen did.
However, 3 times for your star quarterback in a rookie year where he has all the skills to be successful, and you throw it 3 times, that shows me that not that Bill Belichick's having questions about it, but that they don't know how to use them. They're not using him correctly, and this can be said about a lot of quarterbacks in the NFL, but particularly Mac Jones. Is they're going the Brady's a Hall of Famer. Great, I can stick any person with Brady, and it will be fine.
Mhm.
To this guy is young, we need to give him help, but hey, let's just throw a bunch of garbage at him and see what happens. And he's making those players look better than I think that they actually are, in my opinion. And each one of them is able to, I mean, you look at their stats a game 3 receptions for like 75 yards, 3 receptions for like 65 yards, 3 receptions for 45 yards. He's not throwing the ball a lot of times in the game, but he's completing at a decent clip the passes that he needs to complete, and they're going farther than 10 yards. What else
Well,
can
he
you
doesn't
ask?
throw the ball if it's not going to be open. He still has
Yeah,
that little bit of hesitancy to him. That's
but
why
I
he gets
like
sacked
that.
so much, though.
But I like that about him is that, we're not looking at a Brett Favre type player where
No.
I'm going to sling it out and do it. He is more hesitant, and that's getting him sacked more. But one of the things, I mean, and that's why I say giving him more confidence by building his offensive line around him, making sure he has complementary players, but also getting players and not making mistakes. They had 103 penalties this year on offense, and that's absolutely unacceptable
Mm-hmm.
to do. And discipline is a big issue. And you would think from a Bill Belichick coach team that discipline wouldn't be a problem.
That's exactly right. There's a couple of Belichick-isms that are like in the crossfires right now that are led this to being a problem. The first is the destruction of the penalties, the lack of special teams focus. Yeah, granted, it won them some games, but it cost them some games too. This was a very run-of-the-mill team. Like I said, as we said in our last episode in their review, they didn't get on long winning streaks or losing streaks. They just kind of teetered in the middle, which is nice and all, but it's different. It's different for them. And the thing that I really want to focus on, because I think it's the number one problem of the Belichick team right now, and it was his philosophy that every single play needed to have a basketball lineup in terms of who is eligible. You had to have a really, really tall guy, middle, all the way down to the really short guy. So the problem with that is that it doesn't matter how tall they are, it matters what they do. See, when it was working well, there was the assumption that the short guys were quick and lateral, and that the tall guys were just power burners, and it would work out. You know, real bottom line was, yeah, Gronk out there is your power forward. It's always going to work, like regardless. I mean, that's
Yeah.
just the way it is. Just ask Tim Duncan. But
You could stick anybody around LeBron.
this is the problem that they're at right now. They've gotten in bed with this height thing rather than what they actually do. And when I look at the Patriots, the number one thing that I want to fix entering this offseason is that receivers. Because part of the reason you're seeing such relatively even distribution between the three of them is that no one really stands out and is elite. They don't
Mm-hmm.
even have what would be a number 2 receiver on most teams.
Mm-mm.
And that to me
It's like you
is
have a
where
bunch of Barry Switzers running around on the field.
yeah. So, I mean, their two highest paid skill position players are both tight ends, and neither one of them really do much more than a 15-yard corner route to the right, which is great. I mean, it's nice to get a first down, but you can't build an offense just around that. You
Mm-hmm.
need to be able to have diversity and spread it out. And if I'm looking at how I'm going to deal with this team is I want to give them electric talent and particularly the ability to push the ball. Um,
Yeah.
because if we add that to the field and we start hunting the deep center, the
Mm-hmm.
running game just explodes even more. And this is part of the problem the Patriots have is they're running the ball well
Mm-hmm.
without good receivers around them. They're similar to the Colts in this regard,
Right, and that's
in
crazy
that
to me.
it's a great testament to their line and how they're blocking, but it's not a win every week system. It's a win when the defense we're playing against is banged up and we can run through them system. But as soon as we play an elite quarterback who will put points up against us, it kind of implodes. And that's how you get this kind of 500 mirage. Well, half the time we're not playing a super elite quarterback, so we win. It's the Jets. Half the time we play an elite quarterback and it doesn't work out. And that's how you stay in this mirage. So that's where I want to start with this is get me upgrade the receiver position. And quite frankly, whether we're talking about a quick slot guy, a power slot, a speedster down the field, I'm kind
Okay.
of open to all of it because they all can be generally upgraded. If
So
we're
here you go,
playing
Joe.
Madden, we're playing with a bunch of 71s at receiver. Let's give me some mid 80s or above. That's
You
where
ready to
I'm looking
see?
at the receiver room.
Here's the problem. Ramondre Stevenson had the most receptions on this team by 2.
That's a
He
problem.
had 69 receptions, but he only had 421 yards. Jacoby Myers had 804 yards on 67 receptions. Then, as you go down this list, you've got Hunter Henry, like you said, 41 receptions. Then you have 35 by Kendrick Bourne, but those 35 only went for 434 yards.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have identical receptions by Aguilar and Devontae Parker. Devontae Parker went for 539 yards because he has a bigger, he had 17 yards per catch.
Mm-hmm.
And then Aguilar, 362. Then you have Jonnu Smith, who's another tight end, 27. And then your running back at 17. And then you have another running, and then you have Tyquan Thornton, who came on towards the later half of that season, 22.
That gives a bigger testament that they taken the ball out of Jones's hands too much. That though all of those reception numbers should be much higher.
They should, but Joe, here this is the issue with them. They threw the ball more than they ran the ball.
I get it. They just did. I understand that.
And
They were a team that was so dependent upon the big running play and got it often enough that they were able to win. And that's why when I look at this, I want receivers, particularly in the first round, that can become the best friend, someone that Mac Jones will grow up with and have a
but see, Joe,
relationship
here,
with.
yeah, this is the thing that you're getting to, is yes, they have a good running game, but they
Mm-hmm.
only utilized it less than 50% of their 50% of the plays,
Mm-hmm.
less than 50%. They were almost clipping 60%, almost 60% in terms of passing the ball per game. But yet their percentages and their totals were so low that it wasn't even like they were even passing the ball 60% of the time. And when we look at teams and when we look at how this team can be successful, they need to get whatever's happening with Mac Jones's arm, and you're saying the cocking motion, trying to
He takes too long.
figure that out.
But the other
They
thing that
need
needs
the
to be
yak
noted to your
because
point, Bob,
these
is that
guys can get yak. I guarantee you.
yeah.
The guys like Tyquan Thornton and even Devontae Parker, because I've seen it happen.
Mm-hmm.
They're put into some very bad situations, and but again, they don't have anything that skill set wise, if I'm a cornerback, I don't have to be afraid of. And it's unfortunate for them because they're playing in a division that actually has pretty good cornerbacks, pretty good safeties, and they're playing them twice a year. So that's, you've got 6 games there where your weakest thing on offense is the strongest thing on the other team's defense. You're not winning. And
Well,
if you
you win it
if
if
you
you can
do,
run
it's going
the
to be
ball.
close.
Yeah, if you could run the ball. And what the Patriots did, and this doesn't even know this is probably because they had a defensive coordinator running their offense, was they ran the slowest offense in the league.
Mm-hmm.
They consciously didn't run plays that often so their defense could be on a bench. And that will help make your defense look better statistically. And when we shift to looking at this defense, the thing that it needs the most is it needs an actual consistent elite pass rusher.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that to me, New England doesn't have a lot of glaring holes. There's a lot of things you could casually upgrade, almost the entire skilled room of the wide receivers is that department. But the thing that they're truly missing is the centerpiece pass rusher and the centerpiece receiver you can build
Oh
around.
yeah, their edge rush is
You
not
need
good.
both of those, and they don't
Yeah,
have either one. Um,
yeah,
Part of it's the Belichick philosophy. I want to have a lot of tools that can do everything else. But if you have 9 of those and 2 people that just sack everything, it will work out, and that's the direction
yeah.
that they need. So what that's in my summation when I'm talking Patriots. Number 1 need receiver, number 2 need pass rush, but there's not a whole lot of difference on that list between 1 and 2.
No.
But number 3, it's like that's just a luxury item. To me, pass rusher, wide receiver need to be so far off the charts
Hmm.
in terms of priority this offseason. Basically, nothing else
And
matters.
I think they'll get that. I think they'll get what they need. And then once that's in the building, they have to foster it and grow it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things and one of the problems actually of the New England Patriots, historically speaking, during this Bill Belichick era, is the I can find anybody to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Where I bring in Randy Moss for a year, 2 years, great. See you later. Don't keep you around.
Revis.
Keep Revis. You go out and get a guy like Julian Edelman, and he is amazing. He's amazing on the field, unsung hero in most games that they played.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, it was like, okay, hey, we don't want to pay you. See you later. Even though you were great for us.
110 catches every year.
You look at a guy even going back even further like Troy Brown, right? You
Mm-hmm.
look at you look at what this team did. They brought together players that, for all intents and purposes, were made better on the field by Brady. Were made better by the offensive coaching. Were made better by the defensive coaching. Um, and then and I mentioned this earlier, once you start to lose those coaches and you're not putting coaches of similar to equal caliber to allow them to grow, you're going to stagnate. And that's what the Patriots have done the last 2 years. They've stagnated. Do they have the potential to be better? Absolutely, 100%. But they've plateaued at this moment in time because that balance between credible, exceptional coaching and talent is not where it needs to be at. Are these guys talented? Yeah, of course, they're in the NFL. They're going to be talented. That's the tippy top of the top.
Mm-hmm.
But if I don't have a coach that can coach me up and make me better, or realize that I'm not going to get any better and puts me in a role where I'm going to be successful in, your team isn't going anywhere. And we can say this about 95% of the teams in the league, where if you don't have that, it's not going to. Like, for as much as I dog Mike Tomlin, right? He's kept a coaching staff together, or he kept coaching staffs together for a pretty decent amount of time. Staff didn't want to leave. They didn't want to go out and find their glory somewhere else. They were comfortable with a Hall of Fame quarterback. They were comfortable with players. But now, what we're seeing coming out of the era of the Hall of Fame quarterback, and the reason I'm lumping these two teams together is because there's a lot of similarities.
Mm-hmm.
Minus the Steelers' defense is, I think, better than the Patriots' defense when T.J. Watt's there. But when he's not, it pretty much looks
Same.
exactly the same. Um, you're coming out of an era now where you're trying to figure these things out. You have two young quarterbacks, unproven, and you're figuring out, hey, wait, I've got to figure out how to coach this guy because I haven't had to do that in 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm like, oh, if I haven't done something in 20 years, it's probably going to take me a long time to relearn this again. And
The
if I'm
biggest loss
constantly
they
trying to
never
cover my
replaced him was
staff,
Josh Daniels.
eh,
And that it's that straightforward. So hopefully that this new hire will be the correction there. And
it won't. It won't.